Marriage, I once thought, was like a shipping manifest. Double-checked, never delivered quite as promised. What I didn't expect was for my wife to literally ship herself off to Vegas with two meatheads while telling me to walk away if I didn't like it. My name is Miles Carter, and I'm 29 years old. I coordinate logistics for a mid-sized freight company in Queens, which means I spend my days making sure things get from point A to point B without falling apart. Ironic, considering I couldn't keep my own marriage from derailing. My wife Taryn Wolf, yes, she kept her maiden name, said it was better for her brand, is 27 and runs social media for fitness companies. She's got that Instagram perfect look, blonde highlights, spray tan, abs that could cut glass. The kind of woman who takes 47 photos to get one candid shot. We met 3 years ago at a coffee shop near my office. She was there with her laptop, editing photos of protein powder like she was Ansel Adams shooting landscapes. I made some joke about whether the lighting made the supplements look more swole, and she laughed. Actually laughed, not that fake influencer giggle she saves for her stories. For a while, it was good, really good. She'd show me the behind-the-scenes stuff, how many takes it took to get the perfect workout video, the ridiculous requests from brands wanting her to pretend their energy drinks tasted like liquid motivation. We'd laugh about it together, two people who understood that work was just work, not your whole identity. But somewhere along the line, the performance became permanent. It started small. She'd spend longer getting ready to go grocery shopping than I spent getting ready for work. Then came the constant phone checking, the little laughs at messages she wouldn't explain when I asked what was funny. "Just work stuff," she'd say, angling the screen away from me. The late nights started about 6 months ago. Networking events, she called them. Building relationships with other creators. She'd come home at 2 a.m. smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine, talking about collaboration opportunities with people whose names I never heard twice. I'm not stupid. I coordinate shipments for a living. I know when something's not adding up, but I also know that accusations without proof just make you look paranoid. So I waited, and watched, and tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, because that's what you do when you love someone. The gym membership was what really tipped me off. Taryn had always worked out, but it was usually yoga videos in our living room or runs around the neighborhood. Suddenly, she needed a premium membership at this high-end place in Manhattan called Apex Fitness, $80 a month for a gym that was an hour commute from our apartment. The lighting is better for content, she explained, showing me photos of herself doing squats in front of floor-to-ceiling windows. And the trainers here really understand the fitness influencer space. The trainers. Jake and Drew Morrison, twins who looked like they'd been carved from the same block of protein powder and bad decisions. 28 years old, matching tribal tattoos, the kind of guys who called each other bro unironically and thought crushing it was a personality trait. They started appearing in Taryn's content constantly. Workout Wednesday with the Morrison twins. Protein shake recipe from my trainers Jake and Drew. Learning new techniques from these amazing coaches. I met them exactly once, when Taryn dragged me to some fitness expo she was covering for work. Jake had a handshake like a rotten fish and kept calling me buddy in that condescending way that immediately tells you someone thinks they're better than you. Drew was worse. He actually looked me up and down and asked if I ever hit the gym, with this smirk that made me want to hit something else entirely. "Your wife's really dedicated," Jake told me, while Taryn was off taking photos with some supplement company's booth. "She's here like every day, really pushing herself, you know. Some people just have that drive." The implication was crystal clear, unlike her lazy husband who sits behind a desk all day. "Yeah," I said, "she's always been goal-oriented." "Must be nice having a wife who takes care of herself," Drew added, flexing unconsciously. "Keeps things interesting at home, right?" I wanted to tell him that what kept things interesting at home was having actual conversations about something other than macronutrient ratios and follower engagement. But Taryn was already heading back over, phone in hand, probably posting another story about living her best life. That night, she was different, distant. She spent an hour in the bathroom doing her skincare routine, which apparently now involved taking selfies and texting someone who made her laugh in that breathy way she used to laugh at my jokes. "Who's texting you so late?" I asked when she finally came to bed. "Just the girls," she said, putting her phone face down on the nightstand. "Planning some content collaborations. But I'd seen the notification preview when it lit up. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, from a contact saved as Jay." I didn't sleep much that night. The next few weeks were a masterclass in watching someone check out of a relationship in real time. Taryn started scheduling her workouts for times when I'd be at work, then staying out for post-workout smoothies that lasted 3 hours. She'd come home energized in a way that had nothing to do with exercise endorphins and everything to do with the kind of attention she was getting from guys who thought her biggest intellectual challenge should be counting reps. Our conversations became purely logistical. Who was picking up groceries? Whether we needed to pay the electric bill? If I'd remembered to take out the trash? We were roommates splitting utilities, not a married couple sharing a life. The worst part wasn't even the cheating, though that stung like hell. It was how obvious she thought she was being clever about it. The accidental mentions of Jake and Drew in every conversation. The new workout clothes that cost more than my monthly Metro card. The sudden interest in couples' fitness challenges that she'd post about online, but never actually suggest we try together. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to be jealous, to fight for her, to compete with two guys who had nothing to offer except abs and the kind of empty validation that comes from telling someone they're perfect exactly as they are. Instead, I started documenting everything. Screenshots of her posts, photos of receipts for expensive dinners on nights she claimed to be working late, a log of all the times she said she'd be one place, and her location sharing showed her somewhere else entirely. I'm a logistics coordinator. Organization is literally my job. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in March. I'd gotten home early from work because our biggest client had rescheduled a delivery meeting. Taryn wasn't expecting me until 7, but I walked through the door at 5:30 to find her on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, talking in a voice I hadn't heard her use with me in months. "I know, baby. I miss you too," she was saying, twirling her hair around her finger like a teenager. "Tomorrow's workout is going to be so good. I've been thinking about it all day." She hadn't noticed me come in. I stood in the doorway, keys still in my hand, listening to my wife have what was very clearly phone closeness with someone who wasn't me. Tell me what you want to do after we're done with squats," she continued, her voice getting breathy. "I've been practicing that flexibility routine you taught me." I cleared my throat. Taryn spun around so fast she nearly dropped her phone. "Oh, Miles, you're home early." "Yeah," I said. "Clearly." She'd already hung up, but her face was flushed and guilty. "That was just work stuff. Discussing tomorrow's content schedule." "Right. Very thorough content planning. I especially liked the part about flexibility routines." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, but there was no conviction behind it. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" We stared at each other for a long moment. This was the moment where I was supposed to demand answers, start a fight, give her the drama she was clearly craving. Instead, I hung my keys on the hook by the door and went to the kitchen to start dinner. "That's it?" she called after me. "You're not going to say anything?" "What would you like me to say?" "I don't know. Something. Anything. You act like you don't even care what I do anymore." I turned around to look at her. She was standing in the living room doorway, arms crossed, looking genuinely frustrated that I wasn't playing along with whatever script she had in her head for this conversation. "Do you want me to care, Taryn?" "Of course I do. I'm your wife." "Are you?" The question hung in the air between us. She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. For just a second, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my jokes and steal fries off my plate and tell me about her day without checking her phone every 30 seconds. Then her expression hardened. If you don't like the way things are, Miles, you can always walk away. No one's forcing you to stay in a marriage that makes you miserable. There it was. Permission, maybe even a challenge. Good to know, I said, and went back to making dinner. That weekend, Taryn announced she was taking a girls' trip to Vegas. It's a brand collaboration thing, she explained, not quite meeting my eyes as she packed enough clothes for a week into a suitcase designed for a weekend. Some of the other fitness influencers are doing a whole wellness retreat experience. Great networking opportunity. Which girls? I asked. You don't know them. They're from the fitness community. What are their names? Why does it matter? Just curious about your friends. She paused in her packing, a tiny bikini dangling from her fingers. Sarah and Jessica. They're really big in the wellness space. Sarah and Jessica, the most generic names she could think of on the spot. Cool, I said. Have fun. She seemed almost disappointed that I wasn't pushing harder. You're not going to ask any other questions? Like what? I don't know. Where we're staying, what we're doing, when I'll be back. You're an adult, Taryn. I'm sure you've got it figured out. She stared at me for a moment, then zipped her suitcase with more force than necessary. Fine, I'll be back Sunday night. Drive safe. I'm flying. Fly safe. She left the next morning in an Uber that cost $60 to get to JFK. I know because she posted a story from the back seat. Vegas bound with my girls. Wellness retreat, home living my best life. What she didn't know was that Jake Morrison had posted his own story from what was very clearly the same Uber 20 minutes earlier. Vegas, baby, about to crush this weekend. Bro trip, what happens in Vegas? Drew had posted one too. Sin City, here we come. Twins power, Vegas vibes. Some wellness retreat. I spent Saturday morning doing something I'd been putting off for months, going through our shared accounts and finances with the kind of systematic attention I usually reserved for work. What I found was worse than I'd expected. Taryn had been spending money like she was already single. $800 at Sephora in 1 month, $300 on workout clothes she'd worn exactly once. Expensive dinners charged to our joint credit card on nights she'd told me she was eating clean and just having a salad at home. But the real kicker was the Vegas hotel booking. She'd put it on our card, thinking I wouldn't check the statements. 4 nights at the Aria, in a suite with 2 king beds, booked for 3 people, Taryn Wolfe, Jake Morrison, and Drew Morrison. Sarah and Jessica my ass. That's when I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling something much more useful: clarity. I spent the rest of Saturday making phone calls and filling out forms, canceled my name from our joint lease, which was month to month anyway, set up direct deposit to go to a new account at a different bank, transferred the utilities to Taryn's name only. She'd been telling everyone she was an independent woman so she could prove it. Sunday morning, I started packing. Not everything, just my essentials: clothes, laptop, important documents, the coffee maker she'd never figured out how to use anyway. I left behind anything we'd bought together, anything that would require a conversation or negotiation to divide up. The goal wasn't to take stuff, it was to disappear cleanly. My phone buzzed constantly with updates from Vegas. Taryn posting stories of herself in a bikini by the pool, tagged at restaurants I couldn't afford, living it up in a city built on bad decisions. Jake and Drew posted their own content, and if you looked carefully at the backgrounds and reflections, it was obvious they were all together. The smoking gun came Sunday afternoon. Drew posted a video of himself doing some ridiculous flex routine in their hotel room, trying to show off for his followers. He was so focused on his own reflection that he didn't notice what was visible in the mirror behind him. Taryn, in a hotel robe, kissing Jake while he grabbed her ass. Screenshot. Saved. Forwarded to my work email for safekeeping. I finished packing and sat down to write a note. Nothing dramatic, nothing angry, just the facts. Taryn, I took your advice. If the marriage was making me miserable, I could walk away. So I did. The lease is in your name now, utilities too. Hope Vegas was everything you wanted it to be. Miles. I left it on the kitchen counter, next to the spare keys, and walked out of our apartment for the last time. My coworker Lola had been telling me for months that I could crash at her place if I ever came to my senses about Taryn. Lola Chen was 31, worked in our accounts receivable department, and had never liked my wife from the moment they met at the company Christmas party. She's fake, Lola had said bluntly, after Taryn spent the entire evening taking selfies instead of talking to anyone. Like, aggressively fake. The kind of person who thinks having an Instagram following makes her interesting. At the time, I'd defended Taryn. Now, standing on Lola's doorstep with a suitcase and a garbage bag full of hastily packed belongings, I was ready to admit she'd been right. "Took you long enough," Lola said when she opened the door. She was wearing paint-splattered overalls and had her black hair tied up in a messy bun. No makeup, no filter, no performance. Just a real person being real. "She's in Vegas with two guys she met at the gym," I said. "Of course she is." Lola stepped aside to let me in. "Did you finally catch her?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot from Drew's video. "Oh, that's beautiful," Lola said, grinning. "That's really beautiful. Please tell me you saved this." "Multiple copies." "Good man. You want some coffee?" I was just about to start dinner. Lola's apartment was everything mine and Taryn's wasn't. Comfortable, lived in, full of books and plants and art that meant something to the person who'd hung it up. No ring lights, no selfie stations, no motivational quotes in cursive fonts. "So what's the plan?" she asked, handing me a mug of coffee that was stronger and better than anything I'd had in months. "Honestly, I just want to disappear. Let her figure out her own mess." "That's very mature of you." "Is it? Because part of me wants to burn her whole life down." Lola considered this. "What would that look like?" I thought about it. "Well, she's got these brand sponsorship deals that require her to maintain a certain image. Family-friendly fitness inspiration, that kind of thing. They're pretty strict about it. I've seen the contracts. Any behavior that reflects poorly on the brand can void the agreement. And cheating on your husband with two guys in Vegas might reflect poorly?" "It might." Lola's grin got wider. "You know what? Maturity is overrated." That night, I sent a carefully worded email to the 3 brands that sponsored Taryn's content. Nothing accusatory, nothing dramatic. Just a polite note letting them know that I thought they should be aware of some recent social media posts that might be relevant to their partnership agreements, with screenshots attached as reference materials. I also forwarded the Vegas evidence to Taryn's mother with a simple message. "Thought you should know what your daughter's been up to. She said you'd be proud of her independence." Mrs. Wolfe had never liked me, thought I wasn't ambitious enough for her precious daughter, but she was old-school Catholic and had very strong opinions about the sanctity of marriage. This would not go over well. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep in a real bed for the first time in months, without someone next to me scrolling through Instagram until 2 in the morning. I woke up to 47 missed calls. Taryn's flight had landed at 6 a.m. By 7, she was at our apartment, finding my note and the keys. By 7:30, she was discovering that the utilities had been shut off and the landlord wanted to talk about the lease situation. By 8, her phone was ringing with very unhappy brand managers who'd seen some concerning content and needed to discuss the future of their partnership. Her mother had called at 8:15, and that conversation had apparently lasted 23 minutes based on the call log I could see when I finally turned my phone back on. The voicemails were a journey through the 5 stages of grief, compressed into a single morning. "Miles, what the hell is this note supposed to mean? Call me back." "Okay, I get that you're mad, but this is ridiculous. You can't just abandon our apartment. Call me." "The power is off, and Mrs. Rodriguez from the leasing office says you took your name off everything. What is wrong with you? My mom is freaking out and I've got 3 different companies threatening to drop me over some stupid photos that don't even mean anything. Fix this. Please just call me back. We can work this out. I know you're upset, but we can talk about this like adults. And finally, the one that told me everything I needed to know. You bastard, you complete bastard. You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, guess what? Jake and Drew are helping me figure this out. And when we do, you're going to regret this. You can't just destroy someone's life because you're jealous and pathetic. Jake and Drew were helping her figure this out. Perfect. I was having breakfast with Lola when Taryn showed up. We heard her before we saw her, shouting in the hallway, demanding that someone tell her which apartment was Lola's. The building's super, a guy named Brady, who looked like he'd been carved out of granite and disappointment, was apparently not being cooperative. Lady, I don't know who you are or what you want, but you need to lower your voice or take it outside, we heard him say. I'm looking for my husband. Someone told me he was here. Even if that was true, which I'm not saying it is, you can't just show up screaming at people. This is a respectable building. Lola and I looked at each other across her kitchen table. Want me to handle this? She asked. No, I said, standing up. She wants to talk. We'll talk. I opened the door to find Taryn facing off with Brady in the hallway. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd traveled home in. Behind her, looking uncomfortable but trying to appear intimidating, were Jake and Drew. Miles, she said when she saw me. Thank God, we need to talk. Okay, I said. Let's talk. Alone. I looked at Jake and Drew, who were doing their best to loom menacingly despite the fact that they both looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. You brought backup, I pointed out. I'll keep mine. Lola appeared in the doorway behind me, coffee mug in hand, looking like she was settling in for a show. This is ridiculous, Taryn said. You're my husband. We can work this out. I was your husband, I corrected. Past tense. You made it pretty clear that wasn't working for you anymore. I never said that. You said if I didn't like the way things were, I could walk away. So I did. Jake stepped forward, puffing out his chest. Look, buddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Oh, really? What kind of misunderstanding? Taryn told us you guys were separated, that you were cool with her seeing other people. I looked at Taryn, whose face had gone bright red. Is that what you told them? We were having problems, she said defensively. You know we were having problems. So you told them we were separated? I told them we were working through some issues. By you sleeping with both of them in Vegas? Drew shifted uncomfortably. Dude, we didn't know you didn't know. You didn't know I didn't know that my wife was cheating on me? How exactly would that work? The twins looked at each other, clearly realizing they'd been played just as much as I had. Taryn had told them whatever story made her look available and them look like the good guys, and now they were standing in a hallway getting a very different version of events. Look, Jake said, maybe we should just go. No, Taryn snapped. Don't go anywhere. Miles, you can't just blow up our entire life because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I'm 29. Whatever. You can't just disappear and leave me with all this mess. What mess? The apartment, the bills, the sponsors. My mother won't stop calling me. Sounds like you've got a lot to figure out. We had a life together. No, I said, and for the first time since this whole conversation started, I felt genuinely angry. You had a life. I had a job that paid for your life. There's a difference. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Coming home early from work to hear your wife having phone closeness with someone else. You know what's not fair? Finding out your marriage is over by seeing your wife kiss another man in a hotel room mirror on Instagram. You know what's not fair? Spending 3 years trying to make someone happy who was never planning to be happy with you in the first place? Taryn's eyes filled with tears, but I was done being manipulated by her emotions. You wanted independence? You've got it. You wanted to explore your options? Go explore. But you don't get to do it on my dime while living in my apartment, and then act like I'm the bad guy for not sticking around to watch. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at Jake and Drew, who were suddenly very interested in the hallway carpet. I thought you were figuring that out together. The twins exchanged another look, and I could practically see them doing the math. Taryn without brand deals was just another Instagram wannabe with expensive tastes and no income. Taryn, with an angry husband and a scandal, was a liability they didn't need. Actually, Drew said slowly, we should probably head out. This seems like a personal thing you guys need to work through. Don't you dare, Taryn said, but they were already backing toward the stairs. Sorry, Taryn, Jake said. It's a lot more complicated than you made it sound. And just like that, her backup was gone, leaving her standing in the hallway in yesterday's clothes, facing the consequences of her choices for the first time in months. You planned this, she said, turning back to me. You planned all of this. I planned to leave quietly, I said. You're the one who showed up here with an entourage. You sent those photos to my sponsors. You called my mother. I shared some social media posts that were already public. If that's a problem for your sponsors, maybe you should have thought about that before posting them. You're destroying my career. Your career was taking pictures of yourself drinking protein shakes. I think you'll survive. Lola snorted into her coffee mug, and Taryn's attention snapped to her. This is all your fault, she said. You never liked me. You probably talked him into this. Lady, Lola said, I didn't have to talk him into anything. You did all the work yourself. Miles, please, Taryn said, turning back to me with desperation in her voice. We can fix this. I made some mistakes, but we can work through it. People do it all the time. For just a moment, looking at her tear-streaked face and remembering all the good times we'd had before everything went wrong, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the phone call. The lies. The months of being made to feel like I was crazy for noticing what was right in front of my face. No, I said. We can't. Why not? Because you don't actually want to fix anything. You just want to go back to the way things were, where you got to do whatever you wanted and I paid for it and pretended not to notice. That's not a marriage, Taryn. That's not even a friendship. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her cycling through different approaches, different angles to try to get what she wanted. Finally, her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. Fine, she said, but don't think this is over. I know things about you too, Miles, things that could make your life very difficult. Like what? You'll find out. It was a bluff, and we both knew it. I'd been the boring, faithful husband for 3 years. The most scandalous thing in my browser history was looking up whether it was normal for freight shipments to be delayed during hurricane season. Looking forward to it, I said, and closed the door. 2 weeks later, I found out what Taryn's idea of revenge looked like. She'd started a blog called Surviving Narcissistic Abuse, where she'd rewritten our entire relationship as a story of psychological manipulation and financial control. According to her version of events, I was a master manipulator who'd isolated her from her friends, monitored her every move, and then discarded her when she tried to establish independence. The post had been shared in several Facebook groups for women leaving toxic relationships, and a few of her remaining followers had started leaving comments on my company's social media pages about how they employed abusive men. It was creative, I had to give her that, and completely unprovable either way. It was her word against mine, and she had the advantage of being a pretty woman with a sob story. What she didn't count on was me keeping records. I'd documented everything, remember? Screenshots of her posts, receipts for her spending, records of her comings and goings. More importantly, I had something she'd forgotten about, our shared Google Photos account, which had automatically backed up every picture and video from both our phones for the past 3 years, including the videos she'd taken of herself with Jake and Drew that she'd thought she'd deleted, including the screenshots of text conversations where she'd bragged to her friends about training me to pay for things without asking questions, including photos of expensive gifts from mystery admirers that she'd told me were brand partnerships. I didn't post any of it publicly. I didn't need to. I just sent a carefully curated collection to 3 people: Taryn's mother, her best friend from college, and the moderator of the largest Facebook group where her story was being shared. The blog post was quietly deleted within 48 hours, but the real satisfaction came a month later when I ran into Jake at a grocery store near my office. He looked terrible, like he'd lost 20 pounds and hadn't been sleeping. When he saw me, he actually tried to duck behind the cereal aisle, but I'd already spotted him. "Jake," I said, walking over. "How's it going?" "Oh, hey Miles, it's going. How's Taryn?" His face went through several expressions before settling on exhausted resignation. "Dude, I owe you an apology. A big one." "Yeah?" "She's insane, like actually insane. She moved in with me and Drew after you guys split, and it was like living with a tornado made of credit card debt and drama." "That sounds rough." "She maxed out 3 different credit cards in 2 weeks, kept buying stuff for her content creation, and then returning it after she posted the photos. She tried to get us to pay for a boob job by telling us it was an investment in our shared brand." "Your shared brand?" "Yeah. She had this whole plan where the 3 of us would be like a fitness throuple or something, doing couples workouts and relationship content. Except she wanted us to sign some contract giving her control of our social media accounts and 60% of any money we made." I tried to look sympathetic instead of deeply amused. "When did you guys figure out it wasn't working?" "When she started sleeping with our landlord to get out of paying rent, and then told us we were being possessive for having a problem with it." "Ah." "The final straw was when she tried to sell a story about us to some gossip blog, about how we were love addicts who'd stolen her from her abusive husband and then become controlling ourselves when she tried to heal." "Did the blog buy it?" "No, because by then there were like 6 different versions of her story floating around online, and none of them matched up. Plus, someone had sent them screenshots of her bragging about manipulating all of us. I wondered who could have done such a thing." "So where is she now?" "Back with her mom, last I heard. Mrs. Wolf made her get a job at a real estate office. No more influencer stuff, no more brand partnerships. Just showing houses and trying to rebuild her credit score." "And how are you and Drew doing?" "Better. A lot better, actually. Turns out when you're not constantly dealing with someone else's drama, you have time to focus on your own stuff. Drew's actually seeing someone new, a teacher. Really nice, really normal. And I'm thinking about going back to school." "That's great, Jake. I'm happy for you guys." He looked at me suspiciously, like he was waiting for the punchline or the insult, but I meant it. Jake and Drew weren't bad guys, just young and dumb and easily manipulated by someone who'd had a lot of practice. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "How did you know? How did you know to get out when you did?" I thought about it for a moment. I didn't, not really. I just knew that the person I'd married wouldn't have treated me the way she was treating me. So either she'd changed into someone I didn't recognize, or I'd been wrong about who she was from the beginning. Either way, there wasn't much point in sticking around to figure out which one it was. Jake nodded slowly. "I wish we'd been smarter about it. You guys were fine. She would have gotten bored with you eventually anyway. People like Taryn don't actually want relationships. They want audiences." "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I think you're right." We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, and then went our separate ways. As I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Genuine peace. Not happiness exactly, but the absence of constant low-level stress. No more wondering what mood Taryn would be in when I got home. No more walking on eggshells around her fragile ego. No more pretending that her problems were somehow my fault. Just quiet and space to figure out what I actually wanted my life to look like. Lola and I had been taking things slow, but we'd been taking them somewhere. She was everything Taryn wasn't: genuine, funny, interested in the world beyond her own reflection. She read books, cooked actual meals, had conversations about things that mattered. When she laughed at my jokes, it was because they were actually funny, not because she needed something from me. 3 months after the grocery store encounter with Jake, I got a text from an unknown number. "I heard you're seeing someone new. I hope you're happy." I stared at the message for a long time, trying to decide how to respond. There were a lot of things I could have said, about how happiness wasn't something you got from other people, but something you built for yourself. About how I'd learned the difference between being loved and being needed. About how the best revenge really was living well. Instead, I typed back, "I am. I hope you are too." And then I deleted the number and went back to my life. 6 months later, Lola and I moved in together. Not because we were running away from anything, but because we were running towards something better. We got a place in Brooklyn, with good light and room for her art and space for me to set up a proper home office. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd fought for Taryn, if I'd tried to compete with Jake and Drew for her attention. But then I look around at the life I've built instead. Quiet, honest, real. And I know I made the right choice. Marriage, I've learned, isn't like a shipping manifest after all. It's more like a navigation system. It can tell you where you are and where you're trying to go, but it can't make the journey for you. And sometimes the best route to your destination is the one that takes you somewhere completely different than where you thought you wanted to end up. The last I heard, Taryn was engaged to her real estate broker, a divorced dad with 2 kids and very firm opinions about social media usage. Her Instagram account had been dormant for months, replaced by a LinkedIn profile that described her as a customer relationship specialist with interests in work-life balance and traditional values. I genuinely hope she's happy, and I'm genuinely grateful that her happiness is no longer my responsibility. As for me, I'm exactly